Welcome to Team DataFam Tableau Users Group meeting number 14. This tug works a little bit differently where we cater for the presenter rather than the audience. So we're meeting at this time today because that's when Aria is available from, I think you're in Toronto today. So nice and late for her, a lot earlier for us if you're in Australia, and for people like Jens when it's midnight and you're on train. That's impressive as well. I wasn't expecting that. So we meet roughly about every week, depending on who's available as a presenter. We record all our presentations and put them on YouTube. And over the coming weeks, we're going to have a lot more TC25 presentations, some different other random presentations, which is always good, and some content from Visit Sydney, which happened at the beginning of last week. If you want to present, please email me at team.datafam@gmail.com and we can slot you in at a certain time in the future. Today we have Aria, who's going to present how AI works in business intelligence tools, opening the black box, and obviously, I would hope, explaining everything about AI, bots, Tableau Pulse, etc. I haven't seen the presentation. I don't know what she's doing, but we'll hand it over to you and you can take it from here.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Chris. So I'll share my screen. So you guys are able to see my screen, right?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, perfect. Great. So before I start presenting, just a few words before. So the purpose, the goal of this presentation is first to show you how by leveraging AI, we can distill something very complex, like for example, how AI works in BI tools, into very small, distinct steps that are actually available to almost anyone without having any background in computer science. Because if you think like 3 or 4 years ago, you would have to go through something like this in order to understand, different, like you have to study statistics, different complicated formulas, theorems and stuff. So like right now, I guess the learning process has become so much easier, but we need to understand how we can leverage ChatGPT or Gemini in order to simplify this process. And the second purpose of this presentation is actually to show you how things work, essentially what happens in this black box between the question that you type in, for example, in Tableau Pulse, and what happens after it gives you the answer, like a numeric answer or a chart or something. So let's start with one use case. So let's imagine that it's Monday morning and you've barely had any coffee. But since you're very important, you're the executive assistant to the regional manager, you feel very responsible. And the first question that hits you before the coffee does, how's the business doing? And so the question that you might type in, like in Tableau Pulse, like Dwight Schrute did, what were Q1 2024 sales for the Scranton branch of Dunder Mifflin, excluding any beat revenue from February 2024. But since it's 6 a.m. and you're running like a 12% battery, instead of a clear prompt, you send something like this. And this is actually how I torture ChatGPT. It's like every time I type something in, it goes like, oh my God, not again. So, however, AI somehow forgives you and deals with this prompt and gives you the answer that Scranton Q1 2024 sales, excluding beat revenue from February, is this number. So By the end of the session, you will understand how natural language, how NLP, natural language processing, and natural language querying works, how it works specifically in BI tools in 6 steps. So first, we're going to go through how AI turns messy natural language query. We're going to go through how it corrects typos, how it determines your intent, then how it maps to data model, then finally generates SQL query and executes and gives you clean, usable result. So just a few words about my experience, how I started learning about AI, large language models, NLP, NLQ. Essentially, I guess my biggest area of interest is the overlap between AI and data visualization. It's actually, it's a long story I'm not going to go through, but essentially my second startup, that's where my second startup idea came from. But it's not the purpose of this. So I started learning about AI like about 10 months ago, and the approach I decided to take is, the old-fashioned way, just going through, books like academic, whatever stuff. And so on day 2, this is what happened with my laptop. So, and after I realized that my self-esteem is completely destroyed because I wasn't able to understand like anything. And after, spending a few $100 on therapist sessions to recover my ego, I thought I'll give it another try. And I asked ChatGPT to provide me an explanation of how AI works, as if I'm a 5-year-old kid. And I asked to simplify the, over-caffeinated PhD-seeking validation responses that I was actually going through here, so that it will give me a very specific, simple explanation. So the first step is, like I mentioned, we're gonna explore how it cleans the text the input text. So once again, we're just to remind that we have this example. We're trying to understand Q1 24 sales for the Scranton branch. So here's the Python code, and the reason why I decided to put it here is because I'll share this, I guess, presentation after I present, and you guys can just use those query snippets, code snippets, and just run it through like Python and like see how it gives you those small iterative results. So what happens is that it cleans the input text. So first, it lower cases, so it transforms text to lowercase for uniformity. Then it removes different punctuation, so it eliminates punctuation to simplify text. The second step is tokenization. And what is tokenization? It's essentially splitting the clean sentence into individual words. So what happens is that when we type in this part, what were Q1 2024 sales in that weird way, so what AI does is that it splits each and every word into those tokens. So you can think of tokens as just like literally words that AI recognizes. So what happens is that after you input clean text, not you, but AI processes the input text and gives like the second iteration is like the text is processed and the text is cleaned. So it splits text into tokens, and the output tokens will be so the output will be those specific words: sales, revenue, profit, so on and so forth. So essentially how the labeling process works. So once AI identified those tokens, essentially the next goal for it is to understand what type of tokens do those words belong to. So it sort of like categorizes those tokens. And so here's just the flow chart. So first it asks, like, so those tokens are metrics. If it's a yes, then it labels it as a metric. So if it's not a metric, then it asks, is it in time or words category? If it's a yes, it labels as a time filter. If it's a no, it asks, has it do anything with geographic, like, or location? So if it's a yes, then if it's a no, then it asks whether it's a filter or not. So essentially, to make a long story short, it tries to map out each and every word to those parts of any normal SQL query. Then after that, AI will run and provide us with the actual numeric result. So like I said, the next step will be mapping to the database. So what happens here is that now after tokenization, what happens is that now AI understands that the initial word, which was misspelled, sales, is actually mapped out to sales amount, and it represents the amount of each sale, and it is actually a metric. Branch. So branch represents the branch where the sales occurred. So company represents the company that made the sale. Product category represents the category of the product sold. So essentially, it understands each and every word and categorizes that it's either a metric, or it's either like location filter, time filters, or exclusion terms, like for example, like different filler words will be excluded because they don't have any value in terms of like SQL, writing the SQL query. And so after that, after mapping those tokens, what happens is that, it's actually here I was showing how exactly in our specific example. So it identifies that Scranton is branch, so Dunder Mifflin is a company. So between sale date is between 2024 and I think it was Q2, right, or Q1. So then it also identified that some sales amount, it is actually like this metric. So this is how it is mapped, or this is the name in the database table. So and essentially after that, after it wrote this regular normal SQL query that everyone understands, so what happens is that it gives us the final numeric result. So essentially, just to recap, so we started with understanding how, I'm gonna just go through this chart, do this chart at the top. Right, so we started with how AI cleans the text, how it corrects spelling and formats the text. So the second step is tokenization. So AI splits the clean text into meaningful tokens. So the third step is entity recognition, when AI categorizes key terms into metrics and time periods, and analytical identifies what is the analytical intent. So then it maps those tokens to database, so maps query components to SQL fields. Then it generates SQL query, and it finally retrieves insights and provides you the final result that, for example, in Tableau Pulse, it gives you a numeric result. So, or probably a chart, but I mean, charts is a little bit, with charts, it is a little bit more complicated. So now we identified that the response for this weird prompt that we gave Tableau Pulse, then this is the answer, that Scranton Q1 2024 sales, excluding beat revenue from February, is 850,000. So thanks, everyone. That was fairly short, I think. So yeah, open to any questions.
With the way the Tableau user group works, just the software, not me, everyone's on mute. So there hasn't been any questions in the chat. There hasn't been any Q&A, but we'll get time for that later on.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone wants to type in some questions now would be the time.
Okay.
And if not, we'll continue on, because there might be people thinking of questions or typing in some questions as we go. We can come back to Q&A. That was awesome. It sort of broke down exactly how AI worked and going through with tokenization and things like that. So here's Aria's contact details if you need them, both Tableau Public and LinkedIn. She's quite active on LinkedIn, I think, so that's pretty good. And the next section, because I'm just waiting, oh, there's one question in the Q&A, that's good. So the Q&A was, oh, Wendy's saying she might wait for the Q&A. Okay, so we'll open mics at the end. We'll just get to the end of the agenda. So the next part is Fast 5. So obviously 5 quick questions, quick answers, Tableau related. Don't think about it much. It's not like it's a really hard question. It's more just what your initial reaction is.
Mm-hmm.
So the first question is, do you have a favorite color palette you always go back to?
Yes, it is. Actually discovered, I think I found that in Canva. So they have like a lot of, different palettes, and you can just copy paste those custom codes, and yep.
Nice, cool. And the next one is, do you love parameters or consider them a last resort?
Yeah, I think that parameters are really, really great when it comes to, like, for example, when you need to swap different metrics and like dissect, for example, like scatter plot by different dimensions. So that comes in very handy. So yes, I absolutely love parameters.
Yep, perfect. And number 3 is, do you spend more time formatting or actually analyzing data?
I would say analyzing data, unfortunately.
Yeah. And does building dashboards feel like solving a puzzle or painting a picture?
Well, that's actually really interesting, because my immediate answer is painting a picture. Although, like, usually, especially like with my clients, it's a little bit complicated. I mean, everyone, I think, feels the same way.
Yep, definitely. And do you feel more in the zone during design or during data prep?
Definitely, I think during design, because like I can listen to different podcasts and stuff, so.
Nice. Yeah, we should talk about podcasts as well. And the final question is, oh, that was the final question? Hang on. Did I not count properly? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, sorry. I was counting and I counted wrong. Okay, cool. That was 5. So that was easy. I lost count. So the next tug is Khalid talking about turning business requirements into insights you're looking at a credit risk dashboard use case in Tableau. Again, one meeting depends on where you are in the world, so it's good for Australia and Europe this time. Not so good if you're in the US, but obviously there's people here that are past midnight and they're logged in, so that's pretty good. And that's on June 16, so a few days from now. This meeting this meeting and a lot of other tugs are recorded and put on YouTube at youtube.com and Team DataFam. There's also a Spotify podcast and an Apple podcast, so obviously you don't get the video, but you get to listen. And then you can go back and catch up on the ones on YouTube that you really want to watch as well. And if anyone wants to present, please email me at team.datafam@gmail.com and we'll book you in on a slot. So thank you, Aria. I knew it was a short presentation anyway, and that's always good. But thank you for your time, and I'll unmute everyone so they can talk as well. There is another Q&A, but... So Paul's saying, what would happen if you asked AI to provide just the SQL?
So, I mean, probably it would just give you the actual query. I mean, so, sorry, the question is if you, are you referring to ChatGPT or to Tableau Pulse? Like, what is the question?
Yeah, I've just unmuted Paul. So, Paul, if you're in a position where you can unmute yourself, you can talk as well, just to clarify that question. And as soon as I put people into presenter mode, they have to, or you have to unmute on your end so you can talk. But I need to do everyone individually and click on 2 different options. So it takes a little bit of time.
I'm sorry, Chris. I probably missed something, but are we still waiting for Anne to unmute and just explain the question, like clarify the question? Sorry.
It was Paul, but I unmuted him. He sort of popped on camera for a minute and then he disappeared. So I don't know.
Do you want me to ask a question?
Go for it, Wendy.
Okay. Hi, Aria. Thank you so much for that. I loved the diagram, anything that can explain how a large language model works under the hood. I love, and I think your presentation would make an excellent blog. So I'm looking forward to that one. But what my takeaway from your presentation is how important those prompts are, right? And the mapping is what that tells me is, and Chris, you would know more about this as well, is the importance of data management and how your data sources are structured. And because say I called my sales field was called something other than sales, or something that wasn't really linked to sales, or it was called field A, I mean, the algorithm would not be able to map that. So I think it's really shouting at me about the cataloging, data management overall, and how important it is for us to spend time on the data. It's even more important now. Would you say that? Chris and I work together, by the way, full disclosure. Chris is our data engineer and I'm more on the business side, and I work in retail area. So we've been building out data sources for a long time, and I love Tableau Pulse. Actually, just before your talk, I downloaded the white paper from the Tableau website so that I can understand a little bit more on how it actually works, because I think it's important to know all these things, because the perception is that it's magic. You know, you type something in and it creates an output and everyone believes it. But I can assure you that the owner of the business I work for would never accept a response from an algorithm unless I was validating it. So, but you know, I think AI today definitely has its place, and I love technology, so I embrace all of this amazing development, and I love Tableau Pulse. I haven't implemented it properly yet, but yeah, I think it's great. Great presentation. But yeah, the data management side has really, you know, it's really important. We've got to get to that ticket, Chris, on the data dictionary and all of that.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that data security has become, it's crazy important, like especially right now, because I know that, for example, a lot of agencies, orgs right now are trying to implement different shiny AI tools. And, so from my perspective, there's a very, very big concern when it comes to, for example, designing. I've designed a few AI automation agents for a few companies, and one of the biggest concerns was actually data privacy, and unfortunately, nobody can guarantee you 100% that it's safe. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's something about AI that people don't really understand, that it's a great tool. It's awesome. It does a lot of stuff, but there's a lot of privacy issues with it. And there's also a lot of inconsistencies with it. I don't think that people understand that too. Asking it to give you like a SQL query, for example, a lot of the times that query will be broken, I find. So you actually have to go back and do your own sort of investigation and cross-checking and stuff like that with it too. So that's something that a lot of people don't understand either.
Have you guys explored DBT? That's the tool, right? It's like semantic layers and stuff.
Sorry, what was that?
So I think it calls so it calls DBT Labs. So
yeah.
So have you explored that? Have you used that at all?
I use DBT, but the AI part of it has just come out very recently. So I still, for a lot of my SQL coding, I still think possibly I can write SQL faster than what the AI can actually help me with. But the new DBT Copilot the other day, I asked it a question and it just sat there for a while because it was, this new feature down on the side, I'll try and use that. And it just kept asking me more about my data. It's just like, I know my data, I know my structure, it's all up here. I can just write code and it's done. I was doing some Python work the other day and went, the same thing. I know exactly what I want to do in Python. It's just time of writing it all out. And I used another different AI agent and it wrote, 1,000 lines of Python. It took me a few hours to get it right because you've got to go back to the bot all the time and say, and this bit's wrong, and you've misunderstood me here, and this. But it was intelligent enough to say, when I say, this feature's wrong and this button doesn't work properly, let's rewrite the code, and it rewrote all the Python code, and suddenly the button works. And you go, you've still got to be a coder to use AI to write code, because if you're not a coder and you can't explain what the error is or what the problem is or in enough functional detail, it just doesn't know what to do.
Yeah,
that is so true.
Yeah.
Chris, actually, I was wondering, can I take over the screen once again? Because I just wanted to share the tool that I've been using to build this presentation, because I think it's quite fascinating. It's an AI platform that helps you to generate different charts based off your plain English.
Yeah.
So let me share the screen. Okay, so
when you first showed that, I wrote down new napkin because that was the only thing I could see up in the top left.
Yeah. It's napkin.ai. It's probably one of the most profound tools I've discovered, like AI wise. So let's just maybe get this prompt. It's not a prompt. It's just a text, because I think for me, like the next step I'm trying to learn about is not so much how AI, like for example, AI gives you a numeric result. I want to understand, because it's the next level, how AI gives you the why, like the explanation, how it surfaces different, I guess, tables. And so essentially, like intuitively, like semantic layers. I'm not sure if I'm using the right terminology, but essentially, let's say, for example, when you ask why there was this gross profit drop, it gives you several answers because it has already investigated, like went through tons of different tables and views and discovered that, for example, this like gross profit dropped like 20% because those 3 campaigns didn't work, or for example, like whatever, the website was down, so it's essentially just this is something that I can present, down the road as well as like an extension of this. So let's say, so what we're gonna do here, this is just like literally you press this button, generate visuals. And this is just absolutely fascinating. So it just generated those charts off of the text. So it's, I mean, the thing is like, this tool is probably, this is something that has made my learning process so much easier. Because, for example, how, when it comes to like, explaining Python code, it's crazy complicated to explain that so that people, don't drop off, or just like, or don't fall asleep, because it's like how I would go like, without this chart, how else I would explain, those code snippets. But so essentially that's what I'm saying, is that I think if as a company you decide what tools you're going to leverage, like those tools should be like fairly safe. Like for example, like this napkin.ai doesn't require you to put like, the like super confidential information. Or like for example, gamma.ai or something. It's like a presentation generation tool. So I think that like if you just come up with a specific, very specific list of tools that address those very, very time consuming things, like for example, putting together a presentation or like building those charts or rather like charts in PowerPoint. So I think that is for me, that's the biggest challenge, because you have to like go through millions of those AI tools and understand what really, really works specifically for your team. But at the same time, it pays out, I think, really, really well. Pays off.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It can turn text into an image. Can you edit that image or not?
Sorry, say it again?
Can you edit that? If I wanted to go in and actually, if there was a typo in the image, can I change that?
Yeah, totally. Yep.
Can you export it, say, to like PowerPoint to then transform it there?
Yeah. So essentially you can change, like drag and drop like anything essentially. And you can also change the text here. And yeah, it'll just, update the chart, I think. Not like real time, but it's not needed. So here you can export this.
Yeah, there's PowerPoint up the top.
Yeah.
Turns out Napkin is another AI tool that's automatically just blocked by our corporate policy. So can't use that.
So use it at home or don't use it at work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I was mucking around with another AI tool. I don't think I've actually got it open at the moment. Last night for editing images, and I've made the mistake of saying, because I'm trying to do the new team DataFam logo, I said, can you add the word team? And obviously that's a question, so I put a question mark at the end. So the image I got was team with a question mark at the end. I went, remove the question mark, and then it didn't know what to do. It just was like, I was asking a nice question, nice and politely with the question mark at the end, and it just went, oh yes, I'll just add all that into the image. Right?
Well, these things you're saying, maybe you just need to be a better prompt engineer.
Yeah, I just need to be more rude or something. I don't know. but it sort of did most of the work for me, and then I went, okay, I've got an image I can use. Let's just go back to GIMP and actually do the rest myself, because I sort of know what to do. I was just trying to save time. Isn't that what all AI is anyway? Is just trying to save time. Paul, I don't know if you've got a question. You keep turning your camera on and off again, so we can see you very quickly, and then not at all. There you go.
Yeah, I keep. Yeah, thanks, Chris. I keep losing the audio. Well, it's happened twice now, and I have to refresh. So I'm not sure what's going on. My internet. I'm on Wi-Fi, but I just wanted to say thanks for Aria for bringing up those mathematical equations that I would like to understand more about how the initial work is done for cleaning, correcting the text and that sort of thing. How does that actually link back to those mathematical equations? Or is that something you think you should just now trust that works?
I mean, obviously, since this is specifically, for example, this example was just for us understanding and like learning, I think definitely, obviously, like trying to double check whether it's like right responses or not. But I feel like, when you are learning something from point zero, it's a little bit really hard to, like to compare it. Well, not compare it against it, but essentially like validate or double check is, for example, like those super complicated, statistical equations. I want to actually go and like search in those in those books, like listening, scrolling through like hundreds and hundreds of pages. This is just me, so I just trust GPT blindly, but it's not the right approach for sure.
Yeah. So if you just wanted to pick up the SQL itself, you could just directly ask it to provide you with the SQL for the prompt that you're trying to do.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, no, definitely. Mm-hmm.
So you could play around with just asking questions and getting the SQL and learning. That way you could learn the tool.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
No worries. Thanks.
Just on that, Paul, I wouldn't ever blindly trust anything that AI sort of spits out. I would always go back and double check, especially if it's got to do with coding and all of that sort of stuff. I would always go back and double check it. Yeah, my advice would definitely be do not ever blindly trust anything that AI spits out, because you'll find that a lot of the time it doesn't work. Did you hear about that? Did you guys hear about that article that one of the newspapers or something in America or something sent out, and it was an AI article? They used AI to create it, and it was like the top 20 like best sold books, and they didn't exist. So the actual authors existed, but the titles of the books were just, it was just something that it made up. And that's something that I find it does a lot, actually. So don't ever blindly trust AI.
No, I mean,
yeah.
It's,
I'm waiting for Wendy to mention that H word that Wendy hates so much, is hallucinations. When AI just sort of, the same, Lou, I thought you were going to say the law case, or was it a lawyer in America that was stating, previous legal cases that just didn't exist, went NASA AI, and you're right. there's AI, there's hallucinations, but then there's going back and double checking.
Yeah.
I think AI would be a really good tool to learn how to use SQL or to learn how to write SQL or Python and stuff like that. But just always go back and check the logic and see what it's doing. And even with DBT, you know, if you've got DBT writing the SQL for you, they're saying double check it. Don't just blindly trust. You've got to be able to read through it and understand that content of that SQL query. So you know you're getting, you know, in Aria's example, the revenue for 2024 for this, rather than something else that it just missed out on. And, you know, just don't blindly trust that answer because it might not be right.
So
No,
what about, there was a previous time where I had to use that other BI tool, and I know how to write Tableau calculated fields, but I don't know how to write DAX. And AI wrote every single calculation I needed for all of my projects. The problem was that I wasn't absorbing how to do it myself in the end.
Yep.
So it was always like, and I could see I was getting all the right results, and I guess I could break it down. But that's one thing, is that you find it's like if you use a GPS to get somewhere, rather than the old using like a paper street directory or map or something like that. You learn the route better when you have to end up doing more of the navigation yourself.
Yep.
But with GPS now, you kind of autopilot there and then realize, oh, I don't even know how I got
I'm
there.
here now. Yeah.
And there's some similarities with that, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
yeah, go ahead.
I often use it as like a tool to help me learn too. So if there's stuff in there that I don't understand, I'll often ask it questions. Or if there's something, I'll challenge it and be like, why did you put that there instead of this or whatever? And I find that doing that also helps the AI to learn how you operate too, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
You have to teach it.
Just to clarify, because I mean, when I said I blindly trust AI, so in this specific example, when I was learning about AI, I just didn't have time essentially to dive, you know, deeper into statistics, because like I said, it would require me more likely to go and like get, you know, a computer science degree. But I mean, when it comes to, for example, something that is really critical to get like essentially the right results. For example, I'll never ask ChatGPT, you know, to diagnose like just, you know, like me with something, because, you know, you'll never do that. But definitely, I think that like what AI helps also with is just to overcome this, you know, procrastination and fear that I personally struggle with when I see something like really, really complicated. And I'm like, oh my God, I'll never understand that. And like I said, in this example, I literally asked it to explain how it works as if I was like a 5-year-old kid. And then it started like slow and gradually. I started more or less like understand, okay, so this is this, this is that. And then I actually asked it to provide different metaphors, because, you know, like metaphors are also very easy, you know, through metaphors, it's easy to understand like a lot of information. So, and like after that, I finally was able to dive a little bit more into more sort of like complicated way of explaining specifically this topic.
Awesome. Okay, if there's no other questions or anything else, we'll wrap it up there. Almost everyone's
Awesome.
on mute.
Thanks, Aria.
I actually pretty much missed the entire presentation. I got here late, so I just joined for the chat at the end, but I will go back and watch the recording, right?
Awesome.
That's all
Thanks,
right.
Jacob. It'll be online soon.
Thanks,
Okay.
Aria.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good Thursday. Have a good Friday, wherever you are.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.